Craig Lieberman back with you again this week, where we're talking about the top 10 cars that will try to kill you. We'll get to that right after the break. Did you know that the average driver gets 9 traffic tickets in their lifetime? Look, I'll be the first to admit that I've taken maybe a couple of liberties with traffic laws back in the day. And of course, when I got caught, I had to go to court to fight the ticket, which was always a hassle. And each time that I lost my case, it meant big fines, points on my record, and higher insurance premiums. Eventually, I realized that nothing beats having a good attorney argue your case in court. So here's what you do. You download the Off the Record app to your phone and register for an account. And if you get a ticket, simply upload a photo of your ticket into the app and you will be quickly matched with a lawyer in your jurisdiction. Your lawyer will start working your case right away, and in most cases, you'll never have to set foot in a courtroom. Off the Record has a 97% success rate and a 4.9 star rating on Google. And guess what? They even offer a money-back guarantee if they aren't able to reduce the points or keep that ticket fully off your record. Best of all, I've arranged a 10% discount for all of my YouTube viewers, so download the app and register using the referral code FASTLIFE to receive 10% off your first case. So if you've been playing with cars for 4 decades like I have, you've probably been behind the wheel of a car or two that scared the out of you. My 1,000 horsepower Supra was such a car. With a pair of HKS 2835 turbos, if you wanted to get hard on the gas pedal before you were in 4th gear, you had to take great care to make sure that the front wheels were straight and you were finished doing any kind of turning and the chassis had settled. My 500 horsepower supercharged Mustang was another car like that until I put a proper differential in the car and beefed up the suspension because it was a live axle car. And if you know anything about that, you know that's not the best setup for traction. So I thought it would be helpful to share some of the cars that are conspiring to kill you if you ever get a chance to drive one of them. And while there is a long list of cars that can bite you in the ass if you're not careful, the following 10 cars can be very nasty even when you think you're being careful and behaving. So let's jump in. At number 10, the Zenvo ST1, a Dutch car featuring a 7-liter twin-charged LS7 V8, making nearly 1,100 horsepower. And while it had 3 driving modes, wet, sport, and track, the last 2 settings were where you separated the boys from the men. The track mode made the car undrivable, according to the Zenvo engineers. They actually said that on television. So if you're thinking of testing its limits, make sure you put your head between your legs and kiss your goodbye if the car gets out of shape. Coming in at number 9, we have the Dodge twins, the Dodge Chargers and the Dodge Challengers. The number of people who have been killed in these cars is said to be very, very high. Contributing to the death toll is the high-power engine with up to more than 800 horsepower in some trim levels, and the fact that too many young, inexperienced, and or irresponsible drivers push these cars beyond the capability of the chassis, the suspension, and the brakes. Failing airbags on the earlier models going back around on 2009, 2010 didn't help. And of course, everybody who drive those cars seem to think that they're all Mario Andretti, and they're not. Coming in at number 8, we have the rival of the Chargers and Challengers. It's the Ford Mustangs, particularly the S197 and to an extent the S550s. The S197s were still using the primitive solid rear axle rather than the S550s independent rear suspension setup, and that's a big part of it. The other things are youthful exuberance, inexperienced drivers, and irresponsible people who turn off the traction control who think they can handle it is often a recipe for disaster. And while the S550s are better with their independent rear suspension, drivers who tempt fate by turning off that traction control can quickly find themselves in a situation that they can't get themselves out. And given the car's low IIH safety marginal numbers, when these cars crash, they don't actually provide the best passenger protection. And so you're in a car that's tricky to drive and you're inexperienced and the car doesn't protect you very well. Yeah, this was one of the reasons why the car insurance rates are so insane. Coming in at number 7, we have the Ariel Atom, particularly the V8 model, which makes something like 500 horsepower, and the car weighed 500 kilograms. And if you work out the math, it's 900 horsepower per ton. Make a mistake in that car and the EMTs are gonna have to mop you off the pavement. It's basically built from ladders. It looks like the ladder you climb up to put your Christmas tree. And if you crash on that, there's not gonna be much left of you. At number 6, we talk about the Koenigsegg CCX. What was the problem with that car? No downforce. On the popular TV show Top Gear, the Stig crashed when the CCX slid off the test track. Once they added a wing to it, it was partially tamed. But for the amateur people who are not doing it on a racetrack and doing that stuff in canyons and so forth, they're going to have a real tough time controlling the car. At number 5, the Dodge Viper comes to mind. I'm talking about the first generation Dodge Viper. Mario Andretti once told me personally that the first gen Viper was the scariest car he had ever driven. He said that once the back end lets go, there's no recovery. You might as well just cross your arms and you're just a passenger and you better say a prayer. The car had no traction control, no stability control, no ABS. Further, as an open-air car, there was not a solid cocoon to protect the driver. These factors earned the car the nickname of being a widowmaker, which is not the first time that term was used about a car. We'll get to that in a minute. At number 4, the Shelby Cobra and all the similar reproduction kit cars that are running around. Easy to figure it out. Big engine, no ABS, no traction control, tight cockpit, no airbags. A lot of those cars are fiberglass kit cars that don't provide a lot of crash protection. That makes it especially risky. Also, there is no 3-point seat belts. It's just a lap belt, and the car has an open cockpit. So when that thing gets in an accident, it's not good. Number 3, the Porsche 930, which was the first Porsche turbo. It used a 3-liter flat 6 with a single KKK turbocharger. This was back in around 1975, and because of the low compression of the engine and the lightweight of the car, the short wheelbase of the car, and the laggy turbo, when the turbo spooled on, there was an immediate and dramatic effect. If the car wasn't traveling straight without any residual yaw from a previous corner, the car could experience snap oversteer, and if you're on a canyon road, this made these cars very dangerous because sometimes when it comes out of that slide, you're pointed in the wrong direction. This was actually the first car that I ever heard referred to as a widowmaker. Years later, when I bought my own 996 Porsche Turbo, even after 25 years of development on the Porsche 911 and all-wheel drive on our car, the car was still very tail happy, and it took me a few sessions around the track to understand the car's limits. But I'll tell you this, I would never go running through a canyon at a high speed in the rain with that car, even with all-wheel drive. Number 2, the Porsche Carrera GT, for the obvious reason. What makes the Carrera GT worthy of the name Widowmaker is the lack of safety equipment. While the car itself is brutish to drive, highly temperamental, the further lack of basic safety features such as traction control and ABS make it that much harder to drive. And as we saw when Paul Walker's accident was publicized, even a modern supercar built by a reputable auto manufacturer cannot always protect you if the car is being driven irresponsibly. And at number 1, believe it or not, the Chevrolet Corvette. Statistically, these cars are the most crashed sports cars on the road today, likely due to how many have been sold and then how many people came up from lesser cars and put too much faith in the Corvette chassis. These people sometimes felt invincible in these cars, only to learn that the physics always apply to any car. I don't care what you're driving. So you probably figured this out. Each of these cars share some common traits, right? Most of these cars are high horsepower. Several of them lack of the electronic protections such as stability control, traction control, ABS, 3-point seat belts, structural reinforcements in the passenger compartment, and less crash protection than other family sedans or SUVs. Some of these cars have open cockpits. Some of them have no solid roof. Some of them don't even come with the roof. Some of them come with just a tonneau cover. And of course, owners of these cars like to drive fast. High-speed accidents become more deadly when you factor in the enormous kinetic energy during such a crash. If you're doing 100 miles an hour, you don't want to look inside the car when they start pulling the bodies out of it. But more concerning is the simple fact that there are too many drivers who think that they're very talented drivers. Really? Remember the Paul Walker crash? The driver, Roger Rodas, was a professional race car driver. However, his behavior and actions cost him his life and the life of Paul Walker. So I'm curious about how many people would right now stand up and say, I think I'm a better driver than Roger Rodas. Yeah, okay. So when I see young drivers driving recklessly in their Mustangs, their Chargers, their BMWs, Nissan Altimas, or whatever, I have to wonder if they really think that they're a better driver than a professional like Roger Rodas, or do they think their cars will keep them alive if they crash at 120 miles per hour? Or they just don't care, they don't think about the consequences. It's probably all of that combined. Unfortunately though, many of these people are going to wind up as a red stain on the pavement, and that makes me very sad. However, there are ways to enjoy these cars. The truth is, you have to realize that these people you're seeing weaving through traffic on the freeways is that they know that they are not really great drivers, and that's why they don't go to track days, because at a track day, the stopwatch doesn't lie. You might look fast on a freeway because your other cars are going slow, but the stopwatch on a racetrack doesn't lie. A lot of these people would be going about 30 seconds slower per lap than even a driver that has only been on a racetrack on maybe 1 or 2 times. They don't want to go out there and have everybody see their lap times because they know they're not really great drivers. So, but if these drivers could work up the courage to go to a track day, they will be better drivers, they'll be safer drivers, and these skills would stay with you for the rest of your life. I remember when I was a young man, my dad got a free invite to go to Bondurant Racing School, and he had no interest in it. He sent me out there. I was driving, what was I driving? I think I was in, was it Mustangs or Corvettes? I forget, but this is early 1990s. I learned so much about performance driving, and after that, I knew that canyon runs aren't going to be fun because there's too many variables. So I suggest you spend some money on the driver motto, as we like to call it, and it's going to change your life, and it's going to have a lasting effect on how you drive. And the best part of going to a track event is that you can be with your friends without worrying that you're going to kill an innocent person around the next corner, or you're going to be free from the threat of going to jail, getting a speeding ticket, and all that kind of stuff. And it just takes all that stuff off the table, and now you can focus on driving. So that's going to wrap it up for this time, everybody. We'll see you next time.